I was celebrating a successful digital campaign when my phone vibrated against the table. My mother's name, Diana, flashed on the screen. I hesitated, feeling my excitement drain away. My mother's calls usually meant some crisis involving my brother, Keith. Hello? I answered, my voice carefully neutral. Elena. Thank goodness you picked up. My mother's voice came through with artificial cheerfulness. Your father and I have been planning something for your birthday. It's in 2 weeks, right? We've decided to host it at our house, with family and some friends who've been dying to meet you. We have important news to share. Won't that be wonderful? I felt my eyebrows rise in surprise. My birthday? They actually remembered? Oh, that's unexpected, I replied cautiously. I was actually planning a weekend trip to the coast with Zoe and some friends from work. Absolutely not, she interrupted sharply. I have already invited everyone. Your aunts, uncles, cousins, my book club ladies, they're all coming. You should be grateful we've handled everything. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. There was no use arguing when she used that voice. Fine, Mom. Thanks for organizing everything, I conceded. After hanging up, I stared at my phone with unease. In 30 years, my parents had never shown this interest in my birthday. Growing up, my celebrations were modest. A grocery store cake, maybe a used book if I was fortunate. Keith, however, received elaborate theme parties, expensive electronics, and once even a professional DJ. I still remember my high school graduation. I'd been promised help with college expenses. Instead, they gave me a $50 gift card and explained they needed to save money. 2 years later, they bought Keith a convertible for art school and put a deposit on a downtown apartment. When I left at 17 on a scholarship, I swore I'd never count on them again. I worked multiple jobs through college and gradually built my career at a digital marketing firm. Their favoritism had taught me independence. So why this sudden interest in celebrating my birthday? A tiny part of me hoped they'd finally recognized how unjustly they'd treated me. Perhaps they were attempting to make amends. It seemed doubtful, but turning 30 might have made them reflect. I refocused on my laptop, pushing away family thoughts. This project's success meant a substantial bonus. I'd landed 3 major clients this year. 3 months ago, I'd used my savings to buy my own house. No mortgage, completely mine. It was a modest 2-bedroom, but it was the first place that truly felt like home. My phone buzzed with a text from Keith. Heard Mom's planning your birthday. Big celebration coming. Even this simple message carried subtle condescension. At 27, Keith still had the entitlement of the favored child. 2 years ago, he announced that he was opening a tattoo studio. Our parents were ecstatic, despite his lack of business experience. From his Instagram, you'd think he was tremendously successful. His feed overflowed with exotic vacations, designer clothes, and attractive companions. Each filtered image projected a thriving entrepreneur. I suspected the reality was different. For the next 2 weeks, I buried myself in work, trying to push thoughts of the birthday dinner from my mind. When Friday arrived, I left the office early to prepare. I selected a navy dress, professional yet festive, and drove to my parents' suburban home. Vehicles filled the driveway and lined the street. I spotted Aunt Olivia's sedan and several unfamiliar cars. As I approached the door, I inhaled deeply and pressed the doorbell. Mom opened it with an overly bright smile. There's our birthday girl. Come in, everyone's waiting. The living room was crowded with relatives I hadn't seen in months, plus several women I didn't recognize, Mom's book club friends. Aunt Olivia embraced me warmly. Elena, it's been too long. You look radiant. Uncle Robert patted my shoulder. Heard you bought yourself a house recently. No mortgage. That's impressive. Thanks. I smiled, touched by their acknowledgement. It took years of saving, but it's wonderful having a place that's truly mine. From across the room, I noticed Keith's expression. He was sprawling in an armchair, scrolling through his phone. When Uncle Robert mentioned my house, he glanced up with a scowl before returning to his screen. I noticed his designer watch glinting under the lights. The evening progressed pleasantly. We ate catered Italian food, though Mom insisted she'd prepared it, and conversation flowed. Relatives inquired about my career and congratulated me on my home. Several commented on how responsible I'd always been. Remember when Elena was 13 and started that website design business? Aunt Olivia reminisced. Always the entrepreneur. I smiled, savoring their rare positive attention. Keith remained quiet, occasionally typing on his expensive smartphone. Present time, Mom announced after dinner. Everyone gathered as I opened the birthday gifts. Most were simple but thoughtful. A scarf from Aunt Olivia, gift cards from my cousins. When I reached my parents' gift, it was a large box wrapped in silver paper. "This is from us and Keith," Mom said with unusual enthusiasm. Inside was what appeared to be a high-end coffee maker. "Thank you," I said appreciatively. "This will be perfect for my morning routine." As the evening wound down, guests began departing. With each goodbye, I felt increasingly optimistic. Perhaps my parents were genuinely trying to repair our relationship. This birthday wasn't extravagant, but it felt normal. That alone seemed like a gift. Once everyone had left except me, my parents, and Keith, I started collecting my things. "Thanks for hosting the party, Mom. This was unexpectedly nice." "Wait, Elena," Mom said, her expression suddenly serious. "We need to discuss something important. Sit down, please." The shift in her tone made my stomach clench, but I took a seat. Dad joined Mom on their love seat, while Keith lounged nearby, still fixated on his phone. "What's happening?" I asked, my contentment rapidly dissolving. Mom and Dad exchanged a look before Mom spoke. "It's about Keith. He's experiencing financial challenges. 2 years ago, when he opened his studio, he secured loans for business development." Dad interjected. "The business hasn't performed as anticipated, and he's struggling with payments." I bit my tongue to avoid pointing out that Keith rarely seemed to be at his studio. His Instagram showed him at luxury resorts, nightclubs, and yachts with different companions weekly. Just last month, he posted photos from Bali, hardly the behavior of someone in financial distress. "How bad is it?" I asked cautiously. Mom and Dad exchanged another look. "His debts are around $220,000. Mom finally said. $220,000? I gasped. That was more than I'd paid for my entire house. How is that even possible? Keith finally looked up from his phone. "Business costs add up," he said defensively. "Equipment, rent, advertising." "And why are you telling me this?" I asked, though a sinking feeling in my stomach suggested I already knew the answer. Dad cleared his throat. "We think you should help him pay off his debts. You should use your house as collateral for a loan. That would cover his debts and give him a fresh start." The room went silent. I stared at my parents, waiting for them to crack a smile, to let me know they were kidding, but their expressions remained serious. "You want me to risk my house, which I saved for years to buy, to bail out Keith?" My voice was quiet but strained. "He's your brother," Dad said firmly. "Family helps family." I looked at Keith, who had the decency to look slightly uncomfortable, though he was still texting someone, the ghost of a smile playing on his lips. "This isn't happening," I muttered, standing up. "I'm not risking my house." "That's insane." Keith's head snapped up. "What a terrible sister you are," he spat. "You can't be serious," I said, looking from Keith to my parents. "He has a boat, for God's sake. I've seen the pictures. He drives a BMW. Why doesn't he sell those? Those are important for my image." He defended himself, suddenly animated. "I can't sacrifice my professional appearance. How would that look to potential clients? And my home isn't important?" I shot back. "The home I worked for years to afford." "You're being selfish," Mom said, her voice rising. "Keith needs our help. As his older sister, you should support him. And what about all the support you've given him over me his entire life?" The words burst out before I could stop them. "The cars, the vacations, the business investment, that wasn't enough?" "That's different," Dad said dismissively. "He's had different needs than you." "Different needs?" I echoed in disbelief. "When I needed braces, you told me we couldn't afford them. 6 months later, he got an expensive gaming system for Christmas. When I needed help with college tuition, you said I should take out loans. But when he wanted to start a tattoo studio with zero experience, you handed him thousands." "Stop exaggerating," Mom snapped. "We've always treated you both fairly." I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. "I'm not risking my house, and that's final." Mom's face hardened. She stood up, walked to the coffee table, and grabbed the box containing the coffee maker they'd given me earlier. "Then you don't deserve gifts from us," she said coldly, pulling the box away. I stared at her in shock. Even for her, this was cruel. I think you should leave, Dad said, standing beside Mom. If you can't support your brother in his time of need, you don't deserve to be part of this family. You don't deserve to be our daughter, Mom added in an icy voice. Keith watched this exchange with a smug expression that made my blood boil. Fine, I said, grabbing my purse and jacket. I'm going home to the house I earn, that I own, and that I am absolutely not risking for anything like this. Get out, Mom hissed. Just get out. I walked to the door with as much dignity as I could muster. None of them followed me. As I stepped outside, I heard the door slam behind me. The drive home was a haze of emotions. My phone kept vibrating with messages, but I ignored them until I was safely inside my house. When I finally checked, I immediately regretted it. Mom, you ungrateful girl. After everything we've done for you. Dad, your selfishness is disappointing. Think about what matters more. Your brother's future, or your own greed. Keith had sent the most vicious messages. Have fun being alone in your precious house. Maybe you can cuddle with your property deeds since no man would want to live with such a selfish bitch. Must be nice being so ugly inside. At least it matches your outside. You'll die alone in that house. Congrats on the great investment. I threw my phone onto the couch and burst into tears. Happy birthday to me, I whispered to the empty room. After crying until my throat ached, I dragged myself to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. In the mirror, my eyes were red and swollen. But as I stared at my reflection, a strange calm began to replace the hurt. What had I really lost tonight? Parents who had never valued me, a brother who only saw me as a walking ATM. Is that really a family? I made myself a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table, thinking. For the past year, I've been sending my parents $1,500 every month, $900 for the loan on their new car, the old one had finally died last year, and $600 for household bills. They'd never asked for this help. I'd offered it because I believe that's what family members should do for each other. I opened my banking app and navigated to the recurring transfer section. With 2 clicks, I canceled both monthly payments. It felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. Then I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my parents. Mom and Dad, since you've made it clear that you don't consider me your daughter anymore, I won't continue to financially support you. We're strangers now. My monthly transfers for your car loan and household bills have been canceled, effective immediately. If Keith's financial future is so important to you, perhaps you can redirect the $1,500 per month you'll now be responsible for toward his debts instead. Please don't contact me again. Elena. I hit send before I could reconsider. Then I turned off my phone, took a long hot shower, and went to bed. The next day was thankfully Saturday. I didn't think I could face work after the emotional devastation I experienced that night. I turned on my phone the next morning, and it instantly began buzzing with notifications. 67 missed calls, and dozens of text messages, mostly from my parents and Keith. I scrolled through them with detached interest. Mom, how dare you cancel those payments without discussing it first? Call me immediately. Dad, your mother is extremely upset. What you've done is unbelievably cruel. Keith, nice job screwing over Mom and Dad to get back at me. Real mature. Hope you're proud of yourself. The messages grew increasingly desperate and hostile. The latest one, sent just 30 minutes ago, was from Mom. We need to talk. Call me now. As if on cue, my phone rang with her number. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. How could you do this to us? She demanded without even a hello. Do what? I asked calmly. Stop supporting people who don't consider me family. Seems reasonable to me. You had no right. Actually, I had every right. It's my money. There was a pause. Then Mom's voice softened into the manipulative tone I recognized all too well. Elena, sweetheart, we were upset last night. Things were said in the heat of the moment. Why don't you come over today, so we can discuss this like adults? No, I said firmly. I'm not coming over. And I'm not changing my mind about the payments or my house. Her voice cracked. We can't manage without that money, Elena. The car payment alone. You should have thought about that before you demanded I use my home as collateral and called me names, I replied. I'm done being your financial safety net. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers, then did the same for their email addresses and social media accounts. Maybe it was petty, but it felt essential for my mental well-being. The following week was surprisingly peaceful. Without the constant drain of worrying about my family, I found myself more focused at work and sleeping better at night. I closed another project ahead of schedule, earning praise from my boss and securing a new client that everyone had been trying to land for months. My peaceful bubble burst on Friday afternoon when Aunt Olivia showed up at my house unannounced. "Elena, I hope you don't mind me dropping by," she said when I opened the door. "I have some news for you." I busied myself in the kitchen while Aunt Olivia settled on my couch. When I returned with 2 cups of coffee, she got straight to the point. "Your parents have been telling everyone a very interesting story," she said. "According to them, you've cut them off financially because they didn't give you an expensive enough birthday present." I nearly choked on my coffee. "What? There's more," Aunt Olivia continued. "Your mother claims you demanded they sign over their house to you, or you'd stop helping them with bills." I sighed and told her everything: the birthday dinner, Keith's debts, my parents' demand that I use my house as collateral, and the cruel messages afterward. "I have the texts," I added, pulling out my phone and showing her the vicious messages from my family. "They called me ugly, said I'd die alone, that I didn't deserve to be their daughter, all because I wouldn't risk my home to bail out Keith." Aunt Olivia's face darkened as she scrolled through the messages. "This is absolutely disgusting," she muttered. "And now they're playing the victims. Typical Diana behavior. I've watched how they've treated you compared to how they treat Keith for 30 years, she continued. "When you were 13 and won that regional web design competition, your mother barely acknowledged it. 2 years later, Keith drew that mediocre mural that was mostly traced, and they threw him a celebration dinner with the entire family." Her words brought back a flood of memories I'd tried to suppress. The time Keith crashed the family car and got a new one while I had to work 3 jobs to buy my first used vehicle. The Christmas I received discount store gloves while Keith got the latest gaming system. After Aunt Olivia left, promising to set the record straight with other relatives, I felt both validated and emotionally drained. For the first time, someone in my family had acknowledged the unfair treatment I'd endured all my life. The following Wednesday, I was at my desk analyzing client data when my office phone rang. "Miss Carter?" It was the security guard from the lobby. "There's a couple here insisting they need to see you. They say they're your parents." My heart pounded against my ribcage. "I don't want to see them, Marcus. Please don't let them up." "No problem. Should I ask them to leave the property?" "Yes." But I hesitated, then sighed. "Wait. Tell them I'll come down to the lobby. I'll speak to them there for 5 minutes." I took the elevator down, mentally preparing myself. When the doors opened, I saw my parents standing by the security desk. Mom's eyes were puffy, and Dad looked unusually disheveled. "You have 5 minutes," I said coldly, leading them to a corner of the lobby away from curious ears. "This has gone far enough," Dad began. "Your aunt has been telling everyone your version of events, and now the whole family is treating us like we're monsters." "My version?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean the truth? You're exaggerating everything," Mom hissed. "We were just asking for your help, and you've turned it into this. This character assassination." "I showed Aunt Olivia the messages you sent me," I replied calmly. "Your exact words, calling me ugly, saying I'd die alone. Was that an exaggeration?" They exchanged uncomfortable glances. "We were upset," Dad muttered. "People say things they don't mean when they're upset. The way I see it, you finally said what you've always thought of me." Mom's face contorted with anger. "This isn't about ancient history, Elena. This is about now. Your brother needs help, and instead of supporting him, you've destroyed our reputation with the family." "You destroyed your own reputation by lying about me," I countered. "And by treating me like garbage my entire life." "That's not true," Mom protested. "We've always loved you both equally." The blatant lie made me laugh. "Sure, Mom. That's why Keith got a car at high school graduation while I got a department store gift card. That's why you paid for his business, but told me to take out loans for college. You've always been independent," Dad said weakly. "Keith needs more support. Keith needs to grow up and face the consequences of his actions," I said. "And so do you." Mom's face hardened. "Fine. If that's how you want to play this, we'll make your life hell. We'll call you from different numbers, email you from new accounts. Show up where you work. Diana, Dad warned, glancing nervously at the security guard who was watching us closely. No, Lawrence. I'm done playing nice, Mom continued, her voice rising. We'll come to her house, we'll contact her friends. We won't stop until she helps Keith and starts supporting us again. I was tired of their arrogance, their entitlement, their constant emotional manipulation. They really thought they could bully me into giving up everything I'd worked for. I pulled out my phone and dialed a number. Who are you calling? Dad demanded. Nathaniel Chen, I replied calmly. Who? Our corporate attorney. I've already discussed my family situation with him. Mom's face went pale. You're calling a lawyer on your own parents. Hello, Nathaniel, I said into the phone. It's Elena Carter. Remember that family harassment situation I mentioned? They're here at my office right now, threatening me. Could you come down to the lobby? I paused for a short while, waiting for his response. Thanks, I appreciate it. I ended the call and looked at my parents. He'll be here in 2 minutes. We wouldn't actually. Mom began but fell silent as a well-dressed Asian American man in his early 50s approached us. Elena. He nodded to me, then turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, I'm Nathaniel Chen, senior legal counsel for this company, and a personal mentor of your daughters. This is a family matter, Dad said stiffly. It doesn't concern you. Actually, it does, Nathaniel replied. Elena has already shown me the threatening messages you've sent her. Now you've come to her workplace to continue that harassment. Let me be very clear. If you continue to contact Elena against her wishes, by phone, email, in person, or through third parties, we will pursue a restraining order and, if necessary, criminal charges. You wouldn't, Mom whispered, looking at me. Try me, I replied steadily. I'm done being your emotional and financial punching bag. All communication from this point should go through me. Nathaniel continued, handing them each his business card. Have a good day. My parents stood frozen for a moment, then turned and walked out without another word. Through the glass doors, I watched them get into their car, not the newer model they'd purchased with my help, but an older sedan I didn't recognize. You okay? Nathaniel asked after they'd driven away. Yeah, I said, surprised to find I meant it. I think I am. After the confrontation at my office, my parents never bothered me again. The legal warning from Nathaniel had worked perfectly, and my life became wonderfully peaceful. No more drama, no more demands, no more guilt trips. One Saturday morning, Aunt Olivia called me for our weekly chat. Thought you'd want to know, she said after we caught up on normal things. The bank repossessed your parents' car last week. They couldn't keep up with the payments without your help. I see, I said, feeling a twinge of something, not quite guilt, more like acknowledgement. And Keith had to sell his BMW. And that ridiculous boat of his, she continued. Still didn't cover all his debts, but it made a dent. He's moved back in with your parents now. Is he still looking for work? I asked. Actually, yes. He's got interviews lined up at a few places downtown. Nothing fancy, just regular jobs. I smiled to myself. Good. A normal job with regular hours might be exactly what he needs. After we hung up, I grabbed my camera, a recent purchase that had quickly become my passion, and headed to the city park. Photography had become my weekend escape, a way to see beauty in the world around me. My phone buzzed with a text from Zoe, confirming our plans for a weekend trip to the coast next month. I'd made more time for friendships and travel lately, no longer constrained by the obligation to solve my family's financial problems. As I framed a shot of an elderly couple feeding ducks by the pond, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. My life was mine now, shaped by my choices, my values, my desires. For the first time in 30 years, I was truly free.